David, obviously the big focus of this announcement. What do you think he'll bring to the side?
I think over the last sort of 2 years, he's shown his ability, especially at that number 5, 6, 7 role. It's a role within T20 cricket that's so sought after in the world now. There's not a huge amount of people who has that ability around the world. So the form that he's been in over the last couple of years has been outstanding as well. So he's someone who just continues to get better and has had a lot of exposure to different conditions, I think, which is really helpful as well. But yeah, his power, first and foremost, is really impressive. But the overall package, with some handy off-spin overs and good in the field.
Is that where you see him slotting in that 5, 6, 7 position?
I think that would be consistent with where he's played over the last couple of years. He's become really consistent in that role, which is really tough to do for a finisher type player, a power hitter. So yeah, I think that would be the role. I think there's plenty of flexibility in our squad though, which is really important when you've got guys who have moved around the order a little bit. So yeah, there's plenty of options there, which is nice.
How close was Swepo to making the squad after being in it for the last World Cup?
I still really like Swepo's skill set, but it's a different strategy. I think the UAE World Cup last year was on the back of the IPL being played there, and end of season wickets, tied wickets, expecting that spin was going to play a bigger part. We think the 3 spinners in the squad in Zamps, Ash, Agar and Maxi cover us really well here.
Tim David, either of you ever met him?
Yeah, he's not a mythical creature.
He's kind of unknown in cricket, isn't he? He hasn't played a first-class game, just sort of appeared in the last couple of years.
It's a different journey, there's no doubt about that, which is really exciting. And I think when we get the opportunity, to hear about that journey, I think it's been great. But it has been part of domestic systems. He's rookied in Western Australia. He's obviously been part of the Big Bash for a number of years and steadily growing a reputation there. But it's certainly a unique journey.
Is it's a unique journey, but is it a journey that you think might come more often? We got that when David Warner came in 2009, not having played first-class cricket, and when his guy who didn't go on that one tour with him because it was a better option to play franchise cricket. Do you think we'll see more of that?
I don't know if we'll see more of it. I think it's unique for a number of things. I think it's really challenging for players to just be a franchise cricketer without having a base or a support network. There hasn't been, it's new too. So it might be, you might see it more and more, but there's some challenges in just being a franchise cricketer as well.
You'd probably say he's the first Australian to be one of those franchise cricketers that's made a name around the world now and then finding his way into the Australian squad. Would you see it that way?
Again, I think he's been a star of the Big Bash for some time. Again, I'm not entirely sure. We sort of get to the end of the Big Bash and we like to look at who's leading the run charts and who's been facing the most balls batting at the top. But I think if you look at franchises around the world and international teams around the world, the skill set and the ability to finish in innings, whether that's 2 balls or whether that's 12 balls, 20 balls, is highly sought after.
Rugby Ponting recently compared David to Andrew Simons in the 2003 World Cup. What do you make of that comparison?
No, I think Tim David will be Tim David, but great that Ricky Ponting's obviously seen a lot of cricket, would have seen a lot of Tim in the IPL this year, so the fact that he's impressed someone like Ricky's a pretty good sign.
And Aaron, you're defending champions, home soil, very settled squad. What do you think are going to be the main challenges for your squad in this upcoming World Cup?
Good question. I think that playing in home conditions obviously has its advantages. It makes a tournament probably a little bit more comfortable in terms of where you're playing. Most guys would have played there a lot, so I think the competition as it is, the structure that it is, going group stages into a semi-final knockout, it's really brutal. So I think you have to win those close games. You have to be prepared to be aggressive and take the game on and put the opposition under so much pressure. But yeah, there's high risk, high reward in T20 cricket, and if you get it wrong, we saw last year South Africa won 4 games in the group and didn't make it through. So that's how brutal it can be at times. So you have to be mindful of run rate and things like that throughout the tournament as well if you get it into get into a position where you can win well. It's not to take them opportunities for granted, because that can come back and bite you if you don't. So it'll be a really even tournament. The wickets will be good, no doubt. There's some serious teams around the world.
How important then is the India series next month in terms of just mixing and matching lineups and seeing what works?
Yeah, I think we're pretty settled with how we want to play and the structure of the side that we've been playing over the last sort of 18 months. I think the only real change is if we play two frontline spinners in Zampa and Agar, and then using Maxwell as one of the all-rounders to fill that fifth bowler role. We feel really comfortable that Maxi is one of our frontline 5 bowlers as well. So just having that flexibility means that we're able to juggle that around a bit. I think that'll become a conditions-based discussion where, especially going to India, I think we're in Mohali, which tends to seam and carry through. Then we're in Hyderabad, which can be spin-friendly at times, and then Nagpur, I think that's the second one, which can be a really good wicket, but can take some turns. So I think there'll be opportunities to not experiment, but just play the conditions in front of us.
Were there any surprises in this lineup, or largely as expected?
In what, sorry?
In the selection announcement? Any surprises, or just as expected?
I wasn't surprised. That's probably more a question for you.
Just on your keepers, obviously, Matty Wade, Josh Inglis, what was the thought process behind that move to be Alex out?
I think it's just consistent with what we've been, so there wasn't really a process about leaving Alex out. It's retaining the 2 wicket keepers that we've had in there for a period of time.
And then just with Marsh, obviously he was in fine form last World Cup, the Scorchers as well, had a great thing. Is he he built the team around him now at 3, is he sort of the lock for that division moving forward?
Yeah, he is. Yeah, a really important player. And again, I think that's why you want players like Tim to come in. And if you do happen to, I think one of the things about World Cups is not being set on a certain lineup, and if you lose a player in that for a reason, then it throws your whole structure out. So again, I think that'll be part of the Indian tour as well. There's 6 more games post that Indian tour in the lead up to the World Cup. So there's a reasonable amount of T20 cricket coming up where you can start to just work through some what-ifs if a player's missing. But Mitch is a really important player for us.
How long before Cam Green is a sort of 3-format player? You obviously, you're putting your toe in the water in India with him, and the way he's played those first 2 like that, something else. It must be great as a captain to have him there to throw the ball to.
Yeah, it certainly is. I think Cam developing his all-round game, I think, is really important for Australian cricket. We know the skill sets that he's got and the talent that he's got. He hasn't played a huge amount of one-day cricket or T20 cricket, so finding them opportunities to keep developing his game, I think, will be really important for the next generation almost of Australian cricket. And as guys get older and start to phase out, that Cam and that new brigade can start taking the game forward and taking the team forward over the next period of time. But yeah, I'm super excited for what he brings with the ball. He hasn't had a huge amount of opportunity with the bat being down at number 8, but it's still a very impressive package.
Are you sort of bringing him in slowly because he's young and still in that danger zone?
Yeah, well, just conscious with Cam that he's learning international cricket or at international cricket level. So that's I think just been realistic that the journey won't be in a straight line for him, and just happy to work through that. Obviously mindful of the workloads too for a young player. I thought we worked really hard to manage him through the summer last year. He bowled as many balls as he'd ever bowled in a season. So I think the management there was fantastic. Now added some one-day cricket into that as well. So just a great opportunity to expose him. There's obviously a test series in India early in the new year. Some one-day cricket over there. There's a 2023 World Cup there towards the back end of next year. So the more exposure we can give Cam to those conditions and different roles, fantastic. But even he hasn't played a great deal of T20 cricket, but I think even in the glimpses we've seen of some of his one-day cricket and even Test cricket, there's a skill set there that's going to be pretty desirable.
And how's your batting feeling, Aaron? So we jumped into the nets the other night straight after the innings. You feeling okay with that?
Yeah, feeling really good. I think obviously a few more runs would have been nice, but just trying to work out my footwork patterns. That, like most players, your first 10 balls are your most vulnerable in any innings that you play. So it's just continuing to make sure that I'm starting my innings in the right way, and I'm just getting a little bit planted on my front foot. When I get a bit heavy there, it starts to affect the rest of my game because you lose a bit of intent and you lose a bit of flow in your innings. So, but I feel as though that's coming along really well. I think the rewards will be there very soon. Just hasn't happened just yet.
Your form then going to Saturday, will you look to, with the series wrapped up, possibly look to bat first if you do with the toss, just be first on thing, and then just giving the rest of the batting lineup a chance to have a hit?
We're not sure which wicket we're playing on. We're not sure whether it's a fresh wicket or they're going to use that same wicket for the third time in a row. But it's an interesting one. I think that there's still been enough opportunities for guys there. Obviously, Steve Smith being in great form at number 3 again has been really impressive. Alex Carey, for him to just go about his business yesterday and knock off them runs was super important for us at that stage because it was a challenging wicket. We saw that in the first half when we got it right with the ball. So I think it just comes down to what we see in the wicket when we have a look at it tomorrow and reassess from there.
We've got a couple here on Zoom. If you can hear me, guys. Benny Horn.
Thanks, Cole. G'day, guys. Aaron, I just following up from Pete's question. I guess when you're sort of looking for a bit of form and working on your game like that, does it make it more stressful when you're captaining the side, or does kind of having that leadership, I suppose, relax you a bit that you've got you've got another job in the team to look after as well? Yeah,
I think we've got a really settled squad at the moment over the 2 white ball formats, so I'm not hugely concerned. Obviously, it'd be nice, but I know that I've got the full support of the players and the coaching and selection staff. So I'm working hard on my game. It just hasn't quite flowed yet. But like we've seen, that they haven't been the easiest wickets in that first 10 overs in particular. So it just comes down to giving yourself a bit of time and hopefully getting a big one shortly.
George, I think, going back even to 2015 World Cup and certainly last year's World Cup, there was some question marks about Aaron's form, and, you won both of those World Cups. I guess you have a lot of faith in Aaron's ability to sort of stand up when it matters.
Yeah, well, you've probably hit on 2 pretty relevant points there. I think Finch's record over his entire career is a pretty incredible one. He's the leader of the team, and I think you'd be a very brave person to write him off. So very excited for him to lead his team in a home World Cup, which is pretty special.
George, I was just wondering, with the dynamic there at the moment, obviously you played with Aaron for a long time, and Andrew obviously has had a long association with him as well. Does that, when it comes to these discussions, I guess, that you have to have about form and, future plans and things like that, does it make it easier or harder when you have that kind of relationship?
I think having a relationship with anyone makes it easier to have conversations with them. I think knowing you know someone in and out, that someone, I think particularly around Ron, that there's a care factor there. So any conversation you're going to have is coming from a place of wanting the absolute best from his players. That's not Finchy. That's everyone who plays under him. So I don't think that makes any difference. I think relationships are crucial.
Dan Breddick.
G'day, guys. George, just a question for you about, I suppose, Tim David and the amount of T20 leagues that he plays in and how that works out across the year. Is it obviously this series in India before the World Cup? It's important for him to go. How do you sort of look at it in terms of, I suppose, what his calendar looks like versus playing for Australia? Because obviously there's quite a few clashes there.
There's no clashes when he's playing for Australia. Sorry, what do you mean?
As in, how much of a discussion point, I suppose, is it in terms of whether he'd play in a T20 league at a certain time, or say play in a bilateral series, when they might clash?
I think now he's playing for Australia. I think if you're referring back to some earlier things, the last 2 years have been pretty unique from obviously with the pandemic and charter flights, and quite often squads of between 18 and 74 players on any one tour. So we have been conscious, not just with Tim, but with a number of players, that you want players playing cricket. Players want to be playing cricket, and so we've worked with a number of players to make sure that if there's an opportunity for them to be playing, whether that be in a T20 tournament around the world or some county cricket in England, whatever it might be, and it's a better fit for them, then we have tried to accommodate that. But I don't think it's ever been at the expense of trying to pick the best Australian side we can.
And just in reference to something you said earlier about players needing a base, and I suppose the central, whether that be a CA or state contract and that kind of stability. I mean, is that, I suppose, your argument if players more broadly are looking at, I suppose, freelancing around the world in T20, that the alternative is to have that base?
Yeah, I mean, players don't need a base. I think that's just been something it's just one of the considerations. I think it's one of the strengths of the state system, and it's not just a training base. It's support. It's a support network of psychologists and physios, and probably more consistent access to coaching facilities, whatever it might be. So there's no one right way that guarantees that you'll be a successful cricketer. So far be it for me to say that there's one path that works to play your best cricket or play international cricket, but it's not. I think the franchise option for a player isn't necessarily always going to be the best option.
All right.
Thank you.
All right.
And thanks, Cole. Just to you, Aaron, to lead on from what Dan was talking about. The fact that players have more choices these days. And you've been around for quite a while now. So how do you look at it? Generally, a lot of people just look at it negatively. But just having so many choices. George spoke about having different journeys these days, like Tim David.
Yeah, I think like Bale said, the ability to be in a state program gives you access to probably more consistent training. And I know that I feel personally when you don't have the access to state training as much, it takes you longer to get up to speed to different tournaments, wherever that is around the world. So I think that's really important. But also, like George touched on, the ability to have guys playing cricket over the last couple of years, instead of being in an extended squad where if it's a 5-game series, you might be on the pine for 4, potentially 5 of them. With giving the guys the ability to go and play an extra 20, 30, 40 games a year instead of just being a part of an extended squad, I think that's really important and really flexible. I think over the next little while, I imagine that there will be more guys that take the franchise option, because there is so many options these days. But yeah, it can be incredibly hard to get up to speed if you're out of a professional system day in, day out.
Mel.
Yeah, Aaron, I just wondered, given it's such an early start, August start filling footy finals, and you looked fairly tentative when you've got out, how much of that do you put down to sort of a continuing struggle because your numbers haven't been great? How much of that's a sort of an exceptional early start to the season?
Yeah, it's an early start. I think having some wickets that have seamed around probably takes, or you're probably looking to take time at the start of your innings, and sometimes that can be a little bit counterintuitive when you want to score, and that's a part of your technique. When you feel as though you're playing your best is when you're looking to score, and your footwork's probably a little bit sharper. So maybe it's just been a little mindset thing where you're looking to get a little bit deeper into the innings, see off that new ball. But it is an early start of the season, but I think it's brilliant to be up here playing cricket. It's something that we probably haven't utilised as much as what we could have in the past. I know that the schedule's been really packed over the last couple of years, but to have access to the facilities we have up here, and then to go on to Cairns, I think it's been amazing. I know the boys have loved being outside in the warm weather, and especially us guys in Melbourne, where it's been freezing. But it's been great. The facilities at the ground have been second to none. So it's been really important.
And George, can I just ask you, Andrew McDonald was sort of unequivocal when he said that Aaron was sort of given his record and his success was going to lead the team into the 2020 World Cup. Is that, am I right in interpreting an earlier answer that That's your view too?
Yeah, mate.
Yep.
Thanks, Mel.
Very succinct, thank you.
Thanks, guys. Is there any more questions from the floor before we wrap up? One more.
I've just got one for George. Were there any players who were close, who gave you a real selection headache, who you want to give an honourable mention to, I guess?
No, I won't pluck names, but yeah, we've got some good depth. Yeah, it's been I think, a great winter. There's been a number of guys who spent the winter playing in England, not just the 100, but the Blast tournament. Have had some really successful tournaments, which is fantastic.